This slide shows soil moisture regimes across Africa, but again, we focus on Liberia. Most of Liberia falls within the so-called eudictic or even periodic moisture regime, according to the soil moisture regime classification. This means that soils are moist for most of the year and long dry periods are uncommon. As a result, water is continuously moving through the soil, driving leaching and weathering processes. This is very important because it explains why soils in Liberia are strongly leached and often nutrient poor. Water is constantly removing soluble elements from the soil profile. And however, we also need to consider local conditions. In valley bottoms, depressions, floodplains, and areas with shallow groundwater, soils may become saturated for long periods. This is what we call so-called aquic conditions. Under these conditions, oxygen becomes limited, and we see redox features due to redox processes. These produce characteristic features such as grayish colors and mottling. We are going to see examples in the second part of this presentation. In some environments, such as swamps and wetlands, water saturation may be permanent. This is the so-called paraquic condition, in which soils are continuously influenced by so-called reducing processes and may accumulate organic matter. So the key point is that most of Liberia is humid and well supplied with water. Local variations in drainage create very different soil conditions. Third, soil forming factors, which would be topography. Topography has significant impact on soil formation because it determines the movement or direction of deposition of water and other materials. Relief controls water movement, erosion and deposition, strongly influencing soil depth, drainage, and horizon development. Here we can see on the right side the topographical map of Liberia. And on the left side of the screen, you can see a classification of the major topographical units. On uplands, plateaus, at so-called stable surfaces, we find deep, well-developed soils with strong weathering and good drainage. On slopes, hillsides, so-called erosional zones, we find shallow soils where erosion is dominant, so we see V horizon development. At foot slopes, lower slopes, we see the accumulation of materials due to erosional processes and sedimentation processes. And at valley bottoms, depressions, in wet environments, we see poor drainage, water saturation, redoxymorphic features, and so-called belaying processes. This slide focuses on how steepness and position of the slope influence soil development. Topography affects how water infiltrates into the soil, which then affects weathering and the transformation of the parent material. The steepness of the topography determines erosion processes. Higher the steepness, more the erosion. The aspect means the direction of a slope. Aspect changes the local pattern of solar radiation, temperature, relative humidity, and sometimes even precipitation conditions. There is a difference between southern slopes, northern slopes, which differences also influence plant cover, vegetation, and organic matter production. This slide summarizes how soil differ along a topographic sequence from a summit to slope to valley. At the summit, soils are generally more stable and therefore often better developed. On a slope, erosion is strongest, so soils are usually shallower and more weakly developed. In the valleys, transported material accumulates, so soils are often more weathered and more developed, and they may also reflect weather conditions. This slide clearly shows that soil properties are strongly linked to landscape position. Erosion dominates on the slopes, by accumulation and deeper developments, deeper development are more common in lower positions. Fourth soil forming factor, vegetation and biological activity. Organisms, plants and animals play an important role in the development and composition of the soil. Organisms add organic matter, they aid decomposition, weathering, and nutrient cycling. And the richness and diversity of soil organisms and plant life that grows on the surface is, of course, it's tied to climate. This slide focuses on vegetation as a soil forming factor. Vegetation influences soil development through the amount, composition, and distribution of biomass, both above and below the ground. Different plant types produce different kinds of organic residues and root systems. These affect humus formation, nutrient cycling, soil structure, and biological activity. For example, grasses often contribute dense root biomass near the surface, while forests can supply a large amount of leaf litter and deeper rooting patterns. Vegetation protects the soil surface, reduces erosion, influences infiltration, and helps to regulate soil moisture. This slide shows that soil formation is influenced not only by plants, but also by animals and human activity. Soil animals such as earthworms, insects, and burrowing organisms mix the soil, create pores, improve aeration, and accelerate the decomposition of organic matter. This process is often called bioturbation. Through their activity, animals help redistribute materials within the profile and contribute to the soil structure development. Humans are also major soil forming agents. Through cultivation, drainage, irrigation, compaction, excavation, land leveling, people can significantly alter soil properties and soil horizons. In many landscapes, anthropogenic influence is so strong that it can become one of the dominant factors of soil formation.